The following broadcast is brought to you by Public House Media.
Resilient, overcomer, motivational. These words describe the speakers you will hear, as this podcast is filled with real stories of people on the journey with you. They have been through hardships, obstacles, or setbacks, and want to encourage you that you are not alone. Their motivational stories and life lessons remind us that beauty can show itself in the darkest times, and we can step out in boldness to let our story impact others. I'm your host, Liz Colburn, and today's guest has a motivational mantra to share with you.
You should cherish your health instead of your wealth and lean on your God instead of yourself.
Today's motivational mantra is brought to you by Kyle Pavela. Kyle is a dear friend of mine and somebody who I've known for over 10 years now. Kyle is the brother of one of my best friends in grade school, so Kyle and I go way back. He actually graduated from Wisconsin Lutheran College, so we went on to the same college in the Milwaukee area and graduated from there. He lives in West Allis currently and will be 27 at the end of August, so early birthday to Kyle. Happy birthday, Kyle. He's currently not working right now as he continues to recover and rehab from his major neck surgery that he had back in October. His biggest interests and passions in life involve sports. Lots of football and basketball. Those are his favorite things in the world. He also loves playing cards and fishing. And Kyle has a beautiful story to share with you today. I'm going to not steal his thunder. I'm going to let him go into what struggles and obstacles have shaped his life the most.
I would say it's definitely kind of a two-part question for me. And I definitely would say it obviously starts right away from birth for me. I was born in Denver, Colorado in 1990, and I was born about 3.5 months premature. And so I had a very, very, very long hospital stay and everything like that, and lots of days in the ICU before my mom and dad were ever able to bring me home to a safe setting at home. And it was pretty evident early on, in that first year of my life, I had a lot of delays in different body movements and body functions and stuff like crawling and grabbing things and things like that. And it was obviously evident after meeting with some doctors and stuff that I had cerebral palsy. And so that's been a condition that I've pretty much dealt with my entire life. And it's been very, very tough. Especially this last year of my life has actually probably been the toughest. In total, I had my most recent surgery in October of 2016 back in La Crosse, Wisconsin, where I've got some family located. And I had a double artificial disc replacement in my neck from pretty bad spinal cord compression that I had suffered. And believe it or not, it was the 23rd surgery that I'd had in my life. So basically, I've had 23 surgeries in 26 years, and I will be turning 27 the 24th of August this month. So it's been a lot of surgeries. And this one by far with the artificial disc replacements in my neck was by far the toughest and the most painful, and definitely had the longest time frame and timetable for rehabilitation and rehab. The surgery did go really well, and it was definitely a success. So that was obviously a big benefit and something that I'm thankful for. And I had great doctors and physical therapists, but it's also something where, currently as we speak, I'm about 9 or 10 months post-surgical now, and I've still got a lot of rehab and recovery and stuff to do, and just lots of lots of leg strength and arm strength and hand strength and just overall balance spectrum type stuff that I have kind of still have to continue to work out at a gym and do exercises and stuff to maintain and regain, because I had so much muscle loss through the process of leading up to when I had the surgery. So that has obviously been a gigantic obstacle that I've had to battle through, and something that has shaped my life, and something that, there's really no complete finish line, I would say, to it. I mean, it's something that I've, battled from my first day into the world, and I'll battle all the way till whenever my last day in the world is. And obviously it's tough, but it's something that I've, come to terms with and am realistic about. And I also realize that, it has made me the person and the human being I kind of am today, because I've had to learn to live with those circumstances and difficulties and disabilities. And I do the best I can. And I've got a, incredible support base and family and friends, and lots of people in my corner willing to go to bat for me and help me in life. And so that's kind of part one to the question. And part two, I would say, was obviously more on the recent side. In October of 2006, I lost my dad to cancer. He had stage 4 cancer, and so that was obviously very, very, very difficult. I mean, it's difficult losing a parent at any age, but especially I think at the age that I was. I was just reaching that point of, I was a sophomore in high school. I was all excited about my high school future, and working towards eventually making a college decision, and kind of, just a few short years away from my adult years, where things really kind of started to progress in a positive way and really get the ball moving on my life as an adult. And so that was really, really difficult and hard to deal with. I had an extremely good bond with my dad and a very close relationship. So it was very difficult in the sense that we, didn't just have your father-son, what I'd call like a surface relationship. We were very much connected deeper than that. And so it was really tough. It was tough both on myself and my sister and my mom and our whole family. And I kind of had to be the strongest one, I think, too, in battling through it, because my mom and sister were kind of a little bit more emotionally fragile, I would say. So I kind of had to be the man of the house once my dad passed away. And I obviously miss him every day. One thing that I'm kind of grateful for in a weird way, looking back on it, is he had a very, very, very short time to live. From diagnosis actually took place on August 24th of 2016, which was my 16th birthday, was the day he was diagnosed, and he passed away October 13th. So, I mean, it was less than a 2-month battle. And in a way, I'm glad it happened so quickly, because I wouldn't have wanted to see him suffer for months and months and months beyond that, especially when we knew that it was stage 4 and that was pretty much kind of game over, unfortunately. And so I'm almost kind of glad for his sake that he's in a better place in heaven, that he passed so quickly, instead of it being a long, drawn-out process that would cause him more pain and suffering.
I'm so thankful that Kyle came on the show to just show how much he's really battled through. I think that makes Kyle such a strong person. He's so articulate. He really says things with conviction and in a way that's easy to understand. And he talked to us about his struggle with cerebral palsy, his struggle with losing his best friend, who is his father, and the things that go along with that. With the cerebral palsy, I didn't realize this, but there's over 200,000 cases in the U.S. each year of people who have cerebral palsy. And of that 200,000, my dear friend Kyle is one of those. And when I think of him, I think of someone who just perseveres through everything. In the time that I've known Kyle, over 10 years, I've never heard him complain, or I've never heard him say it in a negative light. He always looks at the glass half full and finds the beauty in his journey. And I'm just so thankful for that. It can't be easy. There's a lot of physical therapy and things that Kyle has done ever since I've known him. And he just carries himself with such grace and surrounds himself with such amazing family and friends and people who love him. And the other thing that he talked to us about was losing his father in 2006. I specifically remember getting the phone call from Kyle's family. I believe it was his sister who called me. It was on my birthday, which is October 13th, the day that their dad passed away. And I still remember where I was when I got that phone call. And it seems so minimal that they called to say that she wasn't going to be able to make it to my birthday party. But I just see the beauty in that, because a few years later, I would also lose my mom. And Kyle and his entire family and we've definitely stuck together through having experienced that together. I knew Kyle's dad, and he was the most funny man I have ever met. All of my memories with him include laughing in the car rides to and from basketball practice and different events we were involved in, going over to their house. No matter what we were doing, Kyle's dad definitely knew how to make us laugh. But what I love most is what Kyle and his family have learned through both of those struggles. They're so close-knit, and I'm so inspired by their family. And he, most importantly, knows that God has him. He's quoted, he says, "God's always going to do his best to bless and take care of me." What a great God we have. And I'm so thankful that Kyle knows that as well. In the beginning of this podcast, I know that Kyle kind of shared a little bit about what his life mantra is, but I want him to go into detail now and tell us where he heard this life mantra and what this life mantra means to him.
A life mantra that I've really kind of fallen in love with and kind of tried to duplicate in my own life over these last couple of years actually comes from a very popular person in the sports world. And as many of you who know me personally or have heard about me know, sports is a very big hobby and area of passion in my life. So it's appropriate that this is kind of connected in that way. And the man this quote comes from, that I kind of have used as my mantra, is named Jerry Kill. And he was a very good, high-level, successful Division I football coach, both at the University of Northern Illinois and then most recently coached for a few seasons at the University of Minnesota, where he led the Gophers. And a few years ago, he was unfortunately forced into kind of a leave of absence / early retirement process. I believe in his early to mid 50s because of the fact that he had some type of a illness or disorder that led to him having a lot of issues with seizures. And in fact, he had a few of them right during games on the sidelines, where they had to bring out a stretcher and an ambulance and get, medical professionals to him right away. And so it just became a very scary process for him. And I happened to be watching his retirement press conference on ESPN, I believe it was, and they had the university president and a few of the players up there with him. And he was a very, very genuine and authentic and family-oriented man and strong Christian, and it was a very emotional press conference. And one of the last things that he said, and it just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks, but kind of in a good way, because it was just kind of a real, real explosion and wake-up call of something so positive and so revealing and so true. As his quote was, "I just want to remind everybody here today, and all my former family members and friends and players and other coaches, that I want to leave you today with this closing line." And he said, "I'd like everybody to know that you should cherish your health instead of your wealth, and lean on your God instead of yourself." And I just think it's such an incredible quote for so many different reasons, because I could personally relate to it as somebody that has had so many health issues and different obstacles in that department. And those times when it's so hard to, kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel and think, man, like, why are all these surgeries starting to go through more therapy, and why do I have to do this again? And why does all this, simple everyday stuff have to be so difficult? And I also think that it's just a really neat quote as well, from the sense of, I think we live in a world and a society today in 2017 that's so fast-paced and so so selfish and always looking for instant gratification, that we forget sometimes that we need others in our life, and we also need our faith in God to carry us. It's not just our own personal actions. And, I also think you could look at it from a standpoint of there's a lot of people that, yeah, that's great that you've got an excellent job and a beautiful home and a really nice car and this incredible career in front of you where you're making all this money. But if you're not, taking care of yourself, both in terms of physical health and mental health, and, you're not eating well, not sleeping enough, not exercising, not doing all those other important, physical and mental things, that, you're kind of missing that other half of the equation that's really important. So I think it's just a really neat and special quote, and something that I think a lot of us could be reminded of on a daily basis, and kind of, we're obviously all different people, battling different issues and different things day to day. But I think it's just a very, very strong quote that almost anybody, whether they're a young child or mid-20s, mid-30s, or senior citizens, almost anybody could find a way to connect with that special quote and that special mantra that I've kind of tried to adopt and create.
I love the way that Kyle just explains that in such detail, and so much heart and thought went into that response. And I could totally tell, because sometimes we just think of the first thing that comes to our mind, maybe something that's catchy or something we've heard before. But when he can tell you the details of exactly where he was, exactly how he remembered it, and just explain it in such a beautiful way, you know that that's taken to heart. And I just want to repeat that one more time. Cherish your health instead of your wealth, and lean on your God instead of yourself. I don't think I've ever heard anything more beautiful than that. I mean, mic drop. That's exactly what I needed to hear this morning, and I hope that's what you needed to hear too. Now, Kyle leans in and tells us about how he found the beauty in his journey.
People would look at that and they would say, well, you've had all these sad and difficult things happen in your life. How can you say that it's in any way positive or beautiful or a blessing? And, I think that the biggest thing that I look at is, yeah, I've had a lot of difficulties and rough and tough obstacles come my way in life, but I've just always been reminded that I have a strong faith, and that in all things God does, He has a plan and He has a reason behind it, and He's always going to try to do His very best to bless and take care of me and to help me fight through things. And I also just think that a really big part of it for me as well is I'm just a really, really, really big person that likes to reflect and likes to have perspective on certain things. And I just think that, again, kind of taking a little piece of the puzzle out of one of my previous answers, again, we live in such a fast-paced society and kind of a me society in this world we live in today. And I think sometimes that, it's so easy to complain and panic and worry and freak out about just such simple, petty things in life. And simple things about like, oh no, I, ordered this at a restaurant and they gave me this, or, I was getting my, car detailed and it took a half an hour longer and I'm so upset about it. Or, I was supposed to go over to a friend's house and have dinner and they, didn't return my calls and the whole thing fell through. And in reality, those things in the big picture are not life or death things to worry about. And it's, people need to understand to just not sweat the small things, as I like to say, even though it's more, it's easier said than done. And so back to kind of where I like to reflect and have perspective, even during some of these really tough days for me over this last year, where I was going into the hospital and the clinic for doctor's appointments and physical therapy treatment and stuff, there were some days where I was, having some pain and just not in a good mood and feeling like, man, this is the last thing in the world I want to do is go in for more physical therapy or, go and do this. And I constantly was reminded almost every time I walked in there and was walking through the clinic or the hospital, I saw so many people on a daily basis that were struggling so much worse than me, or, I could tell either had a cancer diagnosis in front of them or a very severe mental or physical disorder. And, the stuff that I was able to do, even in my struggling state of health, was still far more than they were able to do. And, I said to myself, it could be so much worse. It could be so much worse. And I always was kind of thankful and let that kind of sink in and resonate. And I think that that's something that we all can do on a daily basis. And I also, another thing that I'd like to mention that is kind of a blessing in disguise to me, or something that I'm thankful for, despite my, diagnosis or my difficulty of my cerebral palsy, is the fact that I'm very grateful that it affects me on the physical spectrum instead of the mental spectrum, where I've got a lot of difficulty with my legs and my walking and balance and strength and, hand coordination type things like that. But I've still got a really good head on my shoulders. I've still got a good memory. I'm still able to do so much comprehension and critical thinking on a daily basis. And, I would far, far and away rather have struggles the rest of my life physically, but still have a really good and fresh and efficient brain and mind to use, because that's something that I think is, something that's really tough to put a price tag on, and something that, no matter how bad things get for me physically, nobody can ever take my mind away from me.
You hear people say all the time that someone always has it worse than you. But for someone who is experiencing all the things that Kyle is experiencing and still saying this, that just blows me away. I don't know about you, but I love the real examples that he just gave about people who worry and people who are thinking about themselves, when he's talking about people who, get mad at their waitress because their order's not right, and the things that he explained. I love those real examples, because I am definitely guilty of some of those things. I'm sure you're listening and thinking, wow, when that goes into perspective, those things really aren't that big of a deal. And that frame of mind is exactly what Kyle keeps in perspective through his journey. I think that's just what makes him so real and so humble and so with it. So now we're going to go into him talking about how he wants his story and mantra to help others. But before we go there, I think he's already doing that. I'm pretty sure that everybody listening is just thinking that this story has already really helped us. So thank you again, Kyle, for sharing your heart, for being here with us, because you've already made a difference in our lives. But I'm excited to hear and share what you had to say about this.
The biggest takeaway I'd like people to have is to just know that, and I guess it's a little bit of double dipping into my previous answer, but just to know that I just think reflection and perspective is really, really important in life, through whatever type of mental or physical battle you're facing. To just know that, just keep fighting and keep doing your best, and try to just fight and fight and fight as hard as you can. And to just know that, there's always somebody out there that's battling so much worse conditions than you, or so much tougher of a health bill than you. And I also just think that, I'm a really big fan of, pros and cons in life, and almost anything I do on a daily basis. Even if it's as simple of a decision as what am I going to have for lunch today, or, what TV show am I going to watch tonight, or what time am I going to go to bed or wake up, or any of those things. I'm a big fan of creating a list, of kind of a mental list or a written out list, whatever people prefer, of just kind of a pros and cons list. And, looking at it and saying, okay, this is kind of where I'm at in life at almost 27 years of age, and I've got some things that I really, really struggle with, but I've also got some things that I'm able to do a really good job with and have a positive impact mentally and on other people's lives, and still trying to do my very best to get my health and stuff back in order through this rehab and rehabilitation process. And then it's eventually my goal to get into the workforce and hopefully have a full-time job and kind of get that normalcy and stuff back. And so I just think even when you're feeling like everything's negative and everything's going poorly and everything's just kind of going to the garbage, create that list of pros and cons of, okay, yeah, there are 2 or 3 things that are going really poorly, but let's also think of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 things that are going really well. And I think that's just kind of an important way to attack life, whether you're young or middle-aged or old or whatever your status in life is. I think that's a lesson that anybody can learn from.
I'm sure you listening will agree with this, but Kyle's story and his journey really speaks to everybody. Whether they're young, whether you're old, whether you've lost a parent or are burdened in some way physically or struggling in any way, I hope that his story was a light to you, to remind you that someone always has it worse, and we can be thankful along our journey for so many beautiful blessings. Thank you for joining my guest, Kyle Pavela, and I for today's episode of Motivational Mantras. This show is presented by Public House Media, where we all have a voice. You can follow the network on Facebook and Twitter. I'm so humbled that you tuned in to hear one of the many testimonies that I will be sharing on this podcast. I hope you're learning to find the beauty in your journey and continue tuning in so we can grow together each week. You can find both my podcasts each week, Monday mornings for the Morning Uplift and Friday mornings for the Motivational Mantra series. Please feel free to contact me at lizcolburnbb@gmail.com. I love to hear from my listeners. May God watch over you throughout your weekend, and may your light shine for all to see.
You've reached the Holiday Helpline. We turn the holidays into holidays.
We've got too many holiday parties and not enough outfits.
Get to Old Navy for the Saturday steal.
Old Navy?
Yep, today only get 50% off all jeans and shoes. And fleece popover hoodies are just $12 for adults, $10 for kids.
That is a steal.
Plus, get 40% off your entire purchase, 50% off when you use or open an Old Navy card.
50% off?
Yep, turn your holiday into a holiday. Get to Old Navy today. Jeans, shoes, and select styles of fleece valid 11/18. 40% off valid 11/16 to 11/21. Excludes in-store clearance gift cards, register lane items, jewelry, and today only deals. 50% off subject to credit approval valid 11/16 to 11/19. See source for details.